The rain had been falling for 3 days straight when Ethan Ward finally placed the ad. He didn't like strangers, especially not since the war, but the house felt too quiet, too empty, and he was tired of cooking for one. The old farmhouse stood on the edge of a small town, far from the main colony road. Life had changed since the aliens came, but Ethan had tried to pretend it hadn't. He didn't care about the new laws, or the fact that aliens were now allowed to work among humans. He just wanted peace and silence. So when the knock came at his door, soft and hesitant, he almost didn't answer. When he finally opened it, he froze. A tall woman stood in the doorway, her thin coat soaked with rain. Her skin was a faint shade of pale blue, alien unmistakably. Yet her eyes, they were gentle, full of something he hadn't seen in a long time, something human. "I saw your ad," she said quietly, her voice carrying a strange melody. "You need a cook?" Ethan hesitated. "You're not from around here?" The woman nodded once. "No, my name is Sarah. I just need work. I can cook, clean, and I have a child. He won't bother you." A child. Ethan almost closed the door right there. But then he looked closer. She was shivering, and behind her, half hidden under her coat, a small bundle moved. A baby, something inside him, something he thought was long gone, softened. "Fine," he said, stepping aside. "You can stay. For now." The inside of the house was warm, lit by soft yellow lamps. Sarah's eyes moved carefully over the old furniture, the fireplace, the dusty photographs of soldiers on the mantel. She didn't ask questions. She just smiled faintly, as if she understood more than he wanted her to. The baby, small, wrapped in gray fabric, slept quietly in a cradle she carried herself. Ethan noticed the child's skin shimmered slightly like silver dust under the light. "What's his name?" Ethan asked without thinking. "Aaron," she replied softly. "He doesn't cry much. That's unusual," Ethan muttered. She smiled again but didn't explain. Days passed. Sarah cooked simple meals and warm bread, thick soups, roasted roots. Her food filled the house with smells Ethan hadn't known he missed. She worked quietly, always humming strange tunes from her world. The baby rarely made a sound. Sometimes, Ethan found him watching him, silent, calm, with eyes that seemed to shine faintly in the dark. Once late at night, Ethan walked past the kitchen and saw Sarah sitting by the window, the baby in her arms. She wasn't sleeping. She was looking at the stars, whispering something in her own language, words that sounded like music and sorrow mixed together. Ethan wanted to ask her what she was saying, but something in his chest held him back. Then one evening, it happened. Ethan was repairing an old generator in the cellar when he heard a strange hum above. It was soft, almost like electricity in the air. When he climbed the stairs, the lights flickered, then steadied. Sarah was standing in the hallway, pale and still. Her baby was in her arms, awake, and his eyes were glowing like molten silver. Ethan froze. His heart pounded. For a second, the air seemed to vibrate, and a flash, a memory, stabbed through his mind. A battlefield. Screams. And those same silver eyes staring at him through smoke and fire. Not a baby's eyes, but a soldier's. He stumbled backward. What is that?" Sarah looked at him, her expression torn between fear and sadness. "Please," she whispered. "Don't be afraid. He doesn't mean harm." But Ethan couldn't move. That glow, that impossible color, he had seen it before. It was the mark of the enemy species from the war. He had buried that memory, buried it deep. And now in his own house, in the arms of this quiet alien widow, those same eyes had found him again. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. Inside, silence hung heavy between them, broken only by the soft hum coming from the child's gaze. Ethan looked at Sarah, then at the baby, then back again. "What are you?" he whispered. Sarah didn't answer. She just held the baby close, her silver eyes glowing faintly now too. Not in threat, but in sorrow. And in that moment, Ethan realized something terrifying. The baby wasn't the only one awakening old memories. Something inside him, something he thought was dead, had begun to awaken too. The next morning, Ethan woke up before sunrise. He hadn't slept. The image of the baby's silver eyes still burned behind his own. Every time he closed them, he saw flashes, faces, explosions, and the cold stare of the alien soldiers he once fought. But this was no battlefield. This was his kitchen. And the child upstairs was just a baby. He told himself that again and again. But his heart didn't believe it. When he walked into the kitchen, Sarah was already there, quietly stirring something on the stove. The smell of warm grain and herbs filled the air. She looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. "Morning," she said softly, not turning around. Ethan hesitated before replying. "Morning." He sat at the table watching her every move. The baby lay in a small basket nearby, sleeping again, his little hands glowing faintly in the light that spilled from the window. Ethan's throat tightened. He wanted to ask. He needed to ask. Finally, he spoke. "What happened last night?" Sarah's hand paused. For a moment, the spoon stopped moving. Then she continued as if nothing had happened. "You saw his eyes," she said quietly. "I was afraid that would happen." "What is he?" Ethan asked, his voice low. "And don't tell me he's just a baby." "I've seen that light before." Sarah turned slowly to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held sadness, and something deeper, something unspoken. "He is my son," she said simply. "He's—" "Both of us," Ethan frowned. "Both?" "Human in my kind," she said. "Half of one world, half of another." Ethan felt a cold shiver run through him. "That's impossible." "There were no survivors from your world after the war." Sarah looked down. "That's what they told you." Silence filled the room for a long moment. Only the soft bubbling sound from the pot broke it. Ethan's hands clenched on the table. "You don't understand. Your people killed mine. They burned our cities. They destroyed everything." She didn't flinch. "And yours did the same to us. I lost my husband, my family, my home. The war didn't care who started it. It only cared who survived." Her voice trembled for the first time. Ethan looked away. The truth of her words stung more than he wanted to admit. He remembered the orders he followed. The raids. The way the world burned under the same sky that now looked so peaceful. Sarah spoke again, softly, as if afraid to wake the child. "When I escaped, I was pregnant. I hid among humans who didn't know what I was. They helped me until I could stand again. But humans don't like our kind. I needed a place away from the cities. When I saw your ad, I thought, maybe here we could be safe." Ethan's heart twisted. Safe. The word echoed in his mind like a cruel joke. He looked at the sleeping child again. "And his eyes? That light?" Sarah hesitated. "It's not dangerous. It's memory." "Memory?" She nodded. "Our kind can see what others hide. Memories, feelings, things buried deep. When he looks at you, he sees what you try to forget." Ethan's chest tightened. He felt like the air had been pulled out of the room. The baby stirred in his sleep, tiny fingers glowing for a second before fading. Ethan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping the floor. "Keep him away from me." Sarah's eyes widened. "He's just a child." "I said keep him away," Ethan shouted. His voice cracked with something that sounded like fear. He turned and left the kitchen, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. Outside, the wind was cold. The fields stretched far and empty, but Ethan felt no peace in the open air. He lit a cigarette, staring at the distant line of the mountains. "Memory," she had said. "He sees what you try to forget." He closed his eyes and the past came rushing back, a village in flames. Civilians running. An alien soldier, and not attacking but protecting a child. And Ethan's rifle firing, he remembered now. He had killed someone who was trying to save a child. His hands trembled. The cigarette fell to the ground. When he returned to the house hours later, the lights were off. The baby was quiet again, and Sarah sat by the fire, staring into the flames. "I shouldn't have shouted," Ethan said, his voice rough. "I remembered something." She didn't look up. "He showed you?" "Yes." Now she raised her eyes, glowing faintly in the firelight. "He doesn't choose what to show. The past comes when it's ready." Ethan nodded slowly, feeling something heavy but honest settle inside him. For the first time, he didn't see Sarah as the enemy, but he couldn't yet call her a friend either. All he knew was that the baby's eyes had opened a door, and behind it, his old life was waiting. And whatever was behind that door wasn't done with him yet. The night was colder than usual. The wind made the old windows rattle, and the fire in the living room burned low. Ethan sat in his chair, staring at the flames, trying to quiet the thoughts in his head. Every time he blinked, he saw flashes, not just of war, but of faces. People he couldn't name, shadows whispering through his dreams. Ever since that night when the baby's eyes glowed, his sleep had become a battlefield again. Sarah had gone upstairs to put Aaron to bed. The house was quiet, too quiet, until Ethan heard it. A faint hum coming from below. At first he thought it was the wind playing tricks. But the sound grew stronger, a low vibration pulsing like a heartbeat coming from the cellar. Ethan grabbed his flashlight and stood. His legs felt heavy, but curiosity pushed him forward. He walked slowly down the narrow steps, each one creaking under his weight. The air in the cellar was cold and still. His flashlight beam cut through the darkness, crates, old tools, wires, and dust. Then he saw it. A thin silver light shimmered in the corner, faint, moving like mist. It seemed to come from the wall itself. Ethan froze. His breath turned shallow. He stepped closer, reaching out with a trembling hand. The light pulsed once, twice, then vanished. For a second, there was silence. Then a voice, soft, distant, and familiar. Ethan. He stumbled back. The flashlight slipped from his hand, rolling across the floor. The voice was low, echoing, not from the air, but from inside his mind. "Who's there?" he whispered. The cellar felt heavier now, the shadows shifting around him. And then, a shape moved in the corner. It wasn't Sarah. It wasn't human either. A tall, translucent figure stood by the far wall, its form flickering like light through water. Its eyes glowed silver, the same color as Aaron's. "Stay away," Ethan shouted, backing toward the stairs. But the figure didn't move closer. It simply watched him, calm, almost sad. "You left us," the voice said. "You left the field before the fire was gone." Ethan's heart slammed in his chest. He knew that voice. It was his old squad mate, Rain, the one who never made it back. He shook his head. "No, you died. I buried you myself." The figure flickered, the shape twisting, fading in and out. "You buried the truth," it said. "Not me." Then the light blinked out completely. The cellar went dark. Ethan stood there, frozen in place. His skin was cold, his breath loud in the silence. When he finally turned and climbed the stairs, his hands were shaking. Upstairs, Sarah was waiting at the kitchen table, her silver eyes wide with worry. "You went down there," she said. Ethan nodded, still pale. "There's something in your child's power. It's waking things that shouldn't exist." Sarah shook her head. "Not his power, yours." "What?" She looked at him seriously. "Aaron doesn't create. He only reveals. The things you see, they're already inside you." Ethan frowned. "Then explain what I just saw." "My dead comrade, he spoke to me." Sarah's voice was quiet but steady. "The line between memory and spirit isn't as far as you think. Sometimes the guilt we carry takes shape." Ethan sank into a chair. His hands covered his face. "You're saying I'm losing my mind?" "No," she said softly. "You're remembering the truth." Later that night, when Sarah went to sleep, Ethan poured himself a drink and sat by the fire again. The cellar door was locked now, but he could still feel it, that hum beneath the floorboards. He looked at the picture on the mantel, his old squad smiling, young, before the war destroyed them. Rain stood beside him in that photo, his arm around his shoulder. Ethan stared at it for a long time. Then he whispered, "What did I bury, Rain?" No answer. Just the crackle of the fire. But when he turned away, something caught his eye, a faint silver reflection in the glass frame of the photo. He leaned closer. In the reflection, Rain was smiling, but his eyes were glowing. Ethan dropped the frame. It shattered on the floor. The baby began to cry upstairs. The first time since he had arrived. A low, haunting sound echoing through the house. Ethan froze, listening. The cry wasn't like a normal child's. It was layered, strange, as if more than one voice spoke through it. Sarah's voice called softly from above, trying to calm him. But the crying grew louder, the house trembling slightly as if reacting to it. And then suddenly, silence. Ethan looked toward the staircase. There at the top of the stairs stood Sarah, her eyes glowing bright silver in the dark, holding the baby close. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He's seeing something new tonight. And it's not just your past anymore." Her words faded into the darkness. Something unseen moved in the cellar below, knocking once. A heavy, hollow sound like a warning from beneath the earth. Ethan felt it deep in his bones. Whatever had been buried, memories, guilt, or something else, it was no longer sleeping. The next morning brought no peace. Ethan woke to silence, not the calm kind, but the heavy kind that feels wrong. The air inside the house felt colder than it should, like something unseen was still awake from the night before. Sarah was already up, sitting by the window holding Aaron. Her face looked pale, almost transparent under the gray light. "He didn't sleep," she said softly. Ethan poured water into a mug, trying to hide his shaking hands. "Neither did I," she didn't reply. She was staring out at the fields where mist covered the ground like a blanket. Finally, she whispered, "He saw something new last night." Ethan froze. What did he see? She looked at him, her eyes deep and shining. "Something that doesn't belong to you, but came from you." Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" "That doesn't make sense." "It will," Sarah said quietly. "Soon." Ethan tried to go on with his day. He fixed the fence, checked the generator, and chopped wood. But every sound, every shadow made him turn his head. He could feel the cellar watching him. Around noon, while he was cleaning his tools, he heard Aaron's cry again. Not loud, just a short, strange sound like a question, then silence, then laughter. A man's laughter. Ethan's heart stopped. He dropped the wrench and ran inside. Sarah was in the kitchen, alone. The baby was asleep in his cradle. Ethan looked around. "Who was that?" Sarah blinked. "What?" "The voice." Someone laughed. She shook her head slowly. "No one's here." But Ethan didn't believe her. He knew what he heard. The voice wasn't random, it was his own. That night, Ethan couldn't stay still. He kept pacing the living room, his eyes fixed on the cellar door. Every few minutes, he felt a vibration under the floorboards, soft, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed a lantern and went down again. The air was colder this time. The hum was louder, filling the whole space. And on the far wall, the same wall where he had seen the silver light, something new had appeared. A mark. It looked like a handprint burned into the stone. But it wasn't his. The fingers were longer, thinner, alien. He stepped closer. The air shimmered around it like heat from a fire. And then, the world shifted. For a moment, he wasn't in his cellar anymore. He was standing in a field of ash under a red sky. Broken machines lay half buried in the dirt. Alien bodies. Human bodies. The smell of smoke and metal. And there, ahead of him, stood a soldier. The man turned. Ethan gasped. It was himself, but not the man he was now. Younger, harder, his eyes cold and empty. He was holding a weapon, one Ethan remembered too well. The same weapon he'd used on the battlefield. The younger Ethan raised it, fired, and an alien woman fell. She was holding a child. The world spun. The image blurred. Ethan fell to his knees. When the vision cleared, he was back in the cellar, sweating, trembling. His heart pounding in his ears, he whispered, "That wasn't just memory." Sarah was waiting at the top of the stairs when he came up. "You went down again," she said quietly. He nodded. "I saw it myself. I killed someone. A woman holding a baby." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "Now you understand." "Understand what?" She stepped closer. "That woman, she was my sister." Ethan froze. The room tilted. His breath caught in his throat. "No," he whispered. "She was running from your squad that day," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "She tried to save the child. You shot her before she could reach the ship." Ethan's vision blurred. He gripped the table to stay standing. "I didn't know. I didn't know there was a child." Sarah nodded slowly. "That child never survived. But the memory of that day didn't die with her. It found me." "It found you." Her eyes glowed faintly. "And now through Aaron, it's trying to make peace." Ethan shook his head. "Peace? You call this peace?" "You're both haunted," she said softly. "You by guilt, and me by loss. Aaron connects us. He doesn't show the past to hurt you. He shows it to heal what's broken." Ethan looked at her, at the baby in her arms. His small silver eyes were open now, staring at him. Not accusing, just watching. And in that gaze, Ethan felt something strange, and not fear, not pain, but forgiveness. The air around them shimmered faintly. The house stopped humming. For a moment, everything felt still. Then, a sharp knock came from the door. Ethan and Sarah both turned. Outside, Under the pale moonlight, a shadow stood, tall, still, and unmistakably not human. Sarah's voice trembled. "They've found us." Ethan reached for the old rifle on the wall. "Who?" She held Aaron close. "The ones who never wanted peace." The night had turned to silver mist. From the doorway, Ethan could see nothing but white, the thick fog rolling across the fields, swallowing the fences, the barn, even the moonlight. Sarah stood behind him, holding Aaron tight against her chest. Her breath came in short, fast gasps. "They're here," she whispered. Ethan's grip on the rifle tightened. "Who exactly is they?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes flickered toward the fog, as if listening to something far away. "The Seekers," she said finally. "Soldiers from my world. They follow the old codes, no peace, no mercy. They hunt those who break the rule of separation." Ethan frowned. "You mean they kill their own kind?" She nodded slowly. "Especially those who love humans." The baby stirred in her arms, his silver eyes opening, glowing softly in the dim light. A faint hum filled the room again, not loud but steady like a quiet heartbeat in the walls. Ethan swallowed hard. "How many?" Sarah's lips trembled. "3, maybe 4. But they don't come as men. They come as light and sound. You won't see them until they're inside." Ethan didn't understand what that meant, but his instincts and the old soldier's instincts came alive. He locked the doors, pulled down the blinds, and checked his rifle. Outside, something moved in the fog, tall shapes barely visible, sliding between the trees. The first sound came like a whisper through metal. "Shh!" Then a sharp crack, and the lights in the house flickered. Ethan turned toward the window. A shadow pressed against the glass, a tall glowing outline with hollow eyes. "Stay back." Ethan shouted. He fired once. The bullet passed through the figure like smoke, shattering the window. The shape dissolved, then reappeared near the door. The fog outside glowed brighter, and 3 more figures formed beside it, all shimmering, all moving in silence. Sarah cried out, "Don't fight them." "They feed on energy." But it was too late. The lights went out completely. Darkness. Only the glow from Aaron's eyes remained, 2 small points of silver in the black. Ethan felt a pressure in his head, like someone pushing inside his thoughts. Voices, hundreds of them, whispering at once, "Traitor, memory, blood for blood." He dropped the rifle and clutched his temples. "Get out of my head!" Sarah fell to her knees beside him, shielding Aaron. The baby's glow spread, filling the room with a soft light that pushed the darkness back. The figures froze, their outlines trembling. Ethan opened his eyes. The Seekers were staring at the child. One of them spoke, its voice deep and echoing. "That one should not exist." Sarah rose slowly. "He exists because we were tired of war." "Then you defied the covenant," the voice replied. "You brought impurity into both worlds." Ethan stepped forward, standing between Sarah and the Seekers. "You want the child, you go through me." The figure tilted its head. "Human," it said. "You killed her sister." Ethan's chest tightened. "I know, and I'll carry that till I die." For a moment there was silence. Then the figure moved closer, only a few feet away. "Then die now." The air around it began to burn, glowing brighter, humming louder. Sarah screamed, "Aaron!" The baby's glow flared, blinding, silver white. The sound exploded into the room like thunder. Ethan fell to his knees, covering his eyes. When the light faded, the Seekers were gone. Only ash lay on the floor, faintly glowing before vanishing into dust. Ethan blinked, dazed. "Oh, what just happened?" Sarah sank to the ground, her face pale. "He didn't destroy them," she whispered. "He showed them." "Showed them what?" "Their own memories," she said. "Their own pain. He made them remember what war took from them. And they couldn't bear it." Ethan looked at Aaron, now asleep again, his tiny hand curled around his mother's finger. "You mean he—" "Yes," Sarah said. "He doesn't kill. He heals through truth, but not everyone can survive it." Ethan sat back, staring at the silent ash on the floor. "Then he's more dangerous than any weapon." Sarah nodded slowly. "That's why they want him gone." Outside, the fog began to fade, leaving the night eerily quiet. The stars returned one by one, shining above the broken glass and scattered debris. Ethan stood, looking out the shattered window. "They'll send more," he said. "Yes," Sarah answered. "But now they know you're with us. That changes everything." He turned toward her. "You think I can protect him?" She smiled faintly. No, but he can protect you. Ethan looked at the child again, his heart heavy with a strange mix of fear and hope. For the first time, he understood that Aaron wasn't a symbol of war or guilt. He was something new, a bridge. But bridges are fragile. As the night grew still again, the hum in the walls softened, fading into a quiet pulse, like a heartbeat waiting for what came next. And far out in the fog, unseen by either of them, a red light blinked once, a signal sent across the stars. The war, it seemed, had only been sleeping. Now it was waking up again. The night after the Seekers vanished, the farmhouse was silent. Too silent. The kind of silence that feels like the pause between two storms. Ethan sat on the porch with his rifle beside him. The stars shimmered faintly above, but one of them was different. Red, pulsing slowly like a heartbeat in the sky. Sarah stood in the doorway, holding Aaron close. The baby slept quietly, but his tiny hand twitched from time to time, glowing faint silver. Ethan pointed toward the sky. That light, it wasn't there before. Sarah's voice was soft, but filled with worry. It's a signal. They've sent a call back home. They know we're here now, Ethan frowned. You mean your world? She nodded. And not just them. The humans too. Your military has satellites still listening. Both sides will hear it, Ethan's heart sank. Then both sides will come. Sarah's eyes lowered. Yes, and neither will come for peace. The next morning, Ethan tried to act normal. He fixed the broken window, gathered supplies, and checked the old truck in the barn. But his mind wouldn't rest. Every now and then he looked up at the sky and saw the faint red blink still there, like a wound that refused to close. Sarah helped quietly, though her movements were slower. The last night had drained her. Why didn't you tell me this would happen? He asked suddenly. She looked at him, tired but calm. Would it have changed anything? Maybe, he said. I could have prepared. You were never meant to fight for us, she replied. You were meant to remember, Ethan sighed. I don't understand you sometimes. Sarah smiled faintly. That's good. It means you're still human. By noon the hum returned, faint at first, then louder. The walls trembled softly. Ethan looked at Sarah. Is it him again? She nodded. Aaron feels something. Something coming. Ethan's pulse quickened. What kind of something? She didn't answer. Instead, she held the baby closer and whispered something in her own language. The words sounded like a prayer. The air shimmered, and suddenly, Ethan wasn't in the farmhouse anymore. He stood on a metallic platform, under a violet sky filled with floating ships. The air smelled of iron and thunder. Around him, tall figures in silver armor moved silently. Aliens, like Sarah, but colder, more rigid. In the center of the platform stood a tall being, its face hidden by a mask, its voice deep and echoing. Find the child, it said. Before the humans use him, a soldier stepped forward. And the mother? Erase her. Ethan's chest tightened. He tried to move, to speak, but he couldn't. He realized then he was seeing what Aaron was seeing. The child was dreaming, and showing Ethan a vision of the future. Then the sky split apart, a giant ship descending, casting a shadow that swallowed everything below. Ethan gasped, and suddenly, he was back in the farmhouse. He staggered backward, almost falling. I saw them, he whispered. They're coming. Big ships. They're coming for him. Sarah nodded sadly. The signal reached them faster than I hoped. Ethan looked out the window. The sky was still blue, but it felt wrong, like something vast and unseen was moving above the clouds. By evening, they were ready to leave. Ethan packed the truck with food, fuel, and the old generator. Sarah strapped Aaron safely into a small carrier on her chest. The baby slept, unaware of the danger. Ethan climbed into the driver's seat, but before starting the engine, he looked at Sarah. Where do we go? She pointed west, to the mountains. There's an old bunker, one built before the war. Humans and aliens used it for peace talks that never happened. Ethan frowned. And you think it's still safe? No, she said softly. But it's hidden. He nodded and started the engine. The old truck roared to life. As they drove through the misty fields, the sky behind them glowed faint red. The signal had become a beam now, reaching from the earth to the heavens, a silent message to both worlds. Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "When they come," he said quietly, "what will they do to him?" Sarah looked down at Aaron. "They'll try to control him, to use his gift as a weapon, but they don't understand what he truly is. And what's that?" She turned her gaze toward him. "He's not a weapon, Ethan, he's a key. A key to what? To ending everything and restarting it again." The truck rattled over the rocky path. Behind them in the distance, a low rumble echoed. Not thunder, but engines. Ethan pressed harder on the pedal. "They're already here." Sarah closed her eyes and whispered, "Then let's hope the mountains remember the peace humans once promised." The sky darkened, stars flickering above the red glow. Ethan didn't look back again. Ahead, somewhere in the fog and stone, waited a bunker that might save them, or bury them forever. And far above, the signal kept flashing faster and faster, like a heartbeat running out of time. The road ended at the edge of the mountains. Ethan stopped the truck beside a crumbling stone gate. The air was colder here, thin, sharp, and full of whispers that rode the wind. Behind them, far away in the sky, the red signal still blinked, brighter now, pulsing like a heartbeat. Sarah stepped out, holding Aaron close. "This is the place," she said softly. "The humans built it before the war. They called it Sanctum Point." Ethan looked up. Between the cliffs, an old concrete structure was half buried under vines and rock. The metal doors were rusted shut, but the walls still stood strong. He loaded his rifle and flashlight. "Let's move fast. If that signal reached space, they're already on their way." Sarah nodded. "They're not the only ones coming." Inside, the bunker smelled of dust and old steel. Faded banners still hung on the walls. A human hand and an alien symbol joined together. "Unity through understanding," the letters read. Ethan snorted. "Guess that didn't age well." Sarah brushed her hand over the words. "They tried once," she whispered. But fear always spoke louder. They walked deeper into the tunnels until they reached a large central chamber. In the middle stood a circular table covered in dust, surrounded by dead screens. Ethan touched one. To his surprise, it flickered to life, powered by some hidden energy. A map appeared on a glowing faintly blue. 2 worlds, 2 paths, and between them, a bridge of light. Sarah froze. This was the last project of both sides. They were building a link, a communication gate between species. But when war started, they destroyed it. Ethan stared at the glowing bridge. "Looks like it's still listening." "Yes," Sarah said. "And now the signal has woken it." Suddenly the ground trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ethan turned toward the entrance. "They found us." A low hum grew louder. The same eerie sound from the seekers, but this time deeper, heavier, like thunder inside stone. Sarah looked down at Aaron. The baby's eyes were wide open, glowing bright silver. "He knows," she whispered. "What do we do?" Ethan asked. "Protect him," she said. "He'll do the rest." The lights flickered again. The air shimmered, and then the wall split open. A massive shadow stepped through the dust. A tall figure in dark armor, silver veins running across its body, eyes burning red. Behind it, 2 smaller seekers followed. The leader spoke, its voice like a storm. "Return the child, or this world burns with you." Ethan raised his rifle. "You'll have to go through me." The alien's head tilted slightly. "You think your weapon means something?" Before Ethan could respond, the leader raised its hand, and the rifle flew from his grip, thrown by unseen force. It crashed against the wall. Ethan hit the ground hard, his ears ringing. Sarah screamed. The baby's glow flared brighter, spreading across the chamber in a wave of silver light. The seekers froze. The leader staggered back, its armor flickering. The air vibrated. Voices filled the room, human and alien, male and female, old and young. Memories, echoes of both species. Ethan could hear soldiers shouting, mothers crying, children laughing, all blending together into one endless memory. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching Aaron. "He's opening the bridge again," she cried. "He's showing them what we all lost." The red light in the sky outside pierced through the bunker roof, merging with the baby's silver glow. A column of light formed, not of fire, but of memory and sound. Images filled the air, the war, the destruction, and then moments of peace that were never allowed to grow. The alien leader dropped to one knee, its voice trembling. This cannot be forgotten." Sarah looked up, tears in her eyes. "It shouldn't be." Ethan stood slowly, staring into the beam. He's not just showing the past, he said. He's rewriting it. The beam pulsed once more, a bright flash that filled the entire bunker. When the light faded, the aliens were gone. No bodies, no dust, just silence. The red signal in the sky had disappeared. Only stars remained. Ethan turned to Sarah. Is it over? She looked at Aaron. The child was asleep, peaceful, his glow gone. Yes, she whispered. For now. He closed the signal. Ethan sank to the ground, exhausted. What happens next? Sarah smiled faintly. He's connected to both worlds now. When he's older, maybe he'll open the bridge again. Not for war, but for truth. Ethan nodded slowly, looking at the sleeping child. Then maybe. We finally did something right. Outside, the wind blew softly across the mountain pass. The first light of dawn broke over the horizon, washing the world in pale gold. The farmhouse far below stood silent and still, its broken windows now reflecting the rising sun. Ethan stepped out of the bunker, breathing in the cold morning air. For the first time in years, he didn't feel haunted. Sarah joined him, holding Aaron close. You see? She said quietly. Even after all the fire, the world still remembers how to shine. Ethan smiled, tired but real. Let's keep it that way. They started down the path together, disappearing into the morning light. A human, an alien widow, and a child who carried the memories of both worlds. And high above them among the stars, two distant worlds pulsed faintly, no longer enemies but waiting. Waiting for the day the bridge of peace would open again.